Welcome to Recovery Rockstar. My name is Melinda White, and I am a person in long-term recovery. What that means to me is that I have had the blessing to live a lifestyle of love and no longer be in the grips of addiction. And I remain grateful every single day for those who have helped me, those who continue to help me, and those who look to me for help because it reminds me of where I came from and it gives me purpose today. I am extremely excited for this episode. I'm going to be interviewing a dear friend of mine who has some similarities with the path in recovery that I had, so we tended to bond on that very quickly. But before I start talking to my guest, Robert Giles, I just want to also continue plugging Narcan, which is known as naloxone, the overdose kits for opioid overdose. They are available in any of the pilot sites that you can find on the Vermont Health Network at the website for the Health Department. There are a number of pilot sites. There are also other sites now that may not even be listed there. It is becoming so easy to access Narcan. And as I always say, it's better to have a kit and not need it than to need a kit and not have it. So I encourage anybody interested in getting Narcan, if you don't already have it, to go on the Health Department's website or contact your local Turning Point. The one that we have here is Turning Point of Franklin County, right on Lake Street. So thank you all for joining us. And I would like you to help me welcome Robert. Thank you so much for coming and being willing to share a little bit about your recovery journey. It's been a blessing since we've had a chance to meet each other. We have talked. We connect on so many different areas of life that are pretty powerful. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's a real blessing to be here. To be alive is a blessing.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a mutual dear friend that says, thank you for waking me up in my right mind.
Amen.
So we're going to just start out, Robert, if you're comfortable telling the viewers a little bit about what your life was like as a youngster.
Okay.
Where were you born?
Well, I was born and raised in New York City with two loving parents. I had an older brother. My mother had a child out of wedlock when she was 15 and raised him on her own. So I came along 20 years later and grew up in New York City, the South Bronx, and had a normal childhood. Well, I thought it was normal.
Right.
But, I probably had my first trauma when I was, I think, 12 or 13. I saw a dead body. I lived near a mafia dumping ground.
Okay.
So some of those, things like that happening, what kids today would go to counseling for, I never went to counseling for. As well as my friends, they grew up in the area. So I experienced gang violence and all that. But I discovered basketball.
Okay.
And I played in high school, and I managed to get a scholarship to go to college playing basketball at Southern New Hampshire University. And that's where things started to get a little funny in my life.
No doubt. So, and I hate to say, I'm not surprised that you're great at basketball because you're fairly tall as well.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, overall you had a fairly supportive home, had a great interest, which was in playing basketball. And when did substances kind of all of a sudden enter your life? When did you first kind of witness either somebody else using or drinking or even yourself maybe experimenting?
Well, we all, probably around the age of 15, we started experimenting, my friends, my group, with marijuana. Then we discovered like black beauties and things like that. So it was recreational at the time. And then I had a good friend of mine offer me cocaine. Yeah. I think I was about 18 years old, and I tried it and I liked it. And, it became a good friend of mine.
Right.
And it's funny how, you go from recreational usage to, at some point, it shifts over to an addiction.
Yeah.
And I always think about where is that line? Where does that happen? Because it took about 10 years for it to become an addiction.
Right.
But when it did, it was something else.
It was off to the races, right?
Literally.
I think, it's interesting because we learned that addiction is a progressive disease, right? Regardless of the symptom, right? Regardless of the substance. It could be, for me, it was also marijuana, then alcohol, then people could smell that. So then it's pills, and then it's heroin because it's cheaper. And it's like we just keep trading seats on the Titanic. But the reality is the part of the brain that has addiction and the progressiveness of the disease will get us to a point where we, that chasing the dragon, right? We can
Right.
never get back to that first feeling. And also, we're in a position that when we decide maybe we want to stop using, our body is dependent on it because our new baseline is inclusive of substances. So, what did it look like when you started realizing that you were using not so much because you wanted to, but because you had to? What did that look like?
Well, cocaine is a little bit different in that I don't think you ever feel that you have to until you get it in your body.
Yes.
Okay, so once you get it in your body, then it changes things. But it's a mental game, and I don't know. Like I think the needle switched sides when I started hiding it from people.
Yeah.
Because initially I was open about it. Yo, I got some blow. You want to, But after a while, when you start having to hide it,
Yeah.
that's when when you start operating in darkness. That's when things start to come to a head.
It's interesting you say that too, because when we look at some of the data that shows where people are struggling with addiction, one of those questions we see on a number of surveys are, do you use alone? And many people experience that, whether it's because all of a sudden we're embarrassed and we have some guilt and shame because we realize that we're using too much or we're using for the wrong reasons. There's also, I know for me selfishly, I didn't want to share anymore. There was never enough, so I didn't want to have to share, so that is where, like you said, we have kind of that turning point that we're getting in a darker place. And I think that sometimes we start losing our identity of who we truly are.
Absolutely.
What did that look like for you when you realized that you were losing yourself in that lifestyle?
Well, I want to back up a little bit on that question. Growing up, I was really quiet. I was smart in school. I went to Catholic school. My friends went to public school. And I always wanted to be like them. I didn't want to have to go to school wearing a tie and a white shirt and come home and do that, right? So I always was attracted to the guys shooting craps on the corner, the guys that were chasing the girls. I always wanted to be like them. So when I started doing cocaine, it made me start to feel like them.
Right.
So, and I hope I'm answering your question. So that was a turning point for me. I started not being myself. I started being someone else, like a fictional character.
Right.
Yeah, I became boisterous, loud, thought I was the life of the party, but I'm really not that.
Right.
So that was big for me.
That's another thing that I hear often is that people are not feeling comfortable with who they are, right? So then, there's the liquid courage if it's alcohol, right? Or whatever it might be. So to kind of that fitting in type of feeling, like we can't, for some reason as humans, just be grateful and pleased with who we are without learning why it's important to find that place. So when you started recognizing that you were in a place that you wanted to maybe stop, what did that look like?
Stopping for me was a long process. I used cocaine for about 30 years.
Okay.
And so I had, started and stopped many times. I thought I could do it on my own. I thought I could go to a program. I thought I could seek counseling, but none of it worked because internally I wasn't really ready.
Right.
Superficially, based on the things I was doing, stealing and all the things I was doing to get money to get drugs, I thought, oh, this is not me, I got to stop. But inside, I wasn't really ready.
Right.
My heart wasn't ready, my spirit wasn't ready. So it took a long time for me to get to a place where I could actually stop. And only God could do that for me. That's how deep in I was. And I could tell you stories about things that happened in my life, how, facing death many times. Many times, and God just pulled me out.
And it's so amazing that you can be able to look back and acknowledge that. I think for a lot of people, whether they have, regardless of where they are in their spiritual journey in the beginning, there are some people that are resistant, right, to believing that there's something out there. And yet when they start looking back at certain things that have happened, and you shouldn't be alive many more times than once, being able to do that math and put it together. And it's interesting because the work that I do, I work in a clinic, right? So there's medicine and science and all this stuff. And yes, there's definitely a brain disease that would come with addiction. However, it's a disease of the heart, right? It's a disease of the heart and of the spirit. There's something missing. So you mentioned going to a few different programs. What are some of the programs that you tried?
Okay. I tried 12-step programs. I tried to go to outpatient programs. And boy, that was a joke for me because I was a mess. Anyway, I used to fool the counselors all the time in a lot of different ways. But I tried that. I tried a short inpatient program, and then I discovered a program called Teen Challenge, which is a long-term recovery program. And that is what altered my life.
And when was that?
Whew, I believe, because I don't keep track of dates. Let me think about that. 2003, I believe, is when I first went in. And I stayed in for 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a 15-month program at the time, but I ended up staying for 9 years. Yeah.
That's amazing. And how did you hear about it?
It's funny, I was selling cars. And I was really addicted at the time. And I sold the car to a gentleman who happened to be a priest. You know, we were just talking, and he told me that he was a priest. And somehow, I just started sharing with him what I was going through. I just met this man, and I'm giving him my life story and telling him how, you know, cocaine has me, and I'm trying to get out. I can't do anything, and I'm helpless. And he said, I know of a program called Teen Challenge, and if you want to go, just let me know, and I'll make the call and get you in. So I called him the next day, and I said, how long do I have to go? And he said, you've got a couple days, because I had an apartment. I had to get rid of everything in my apartment. Right. And he made the call and drove me to Massachusetts, and that was it.
It's amazing. It was Brockton, Mass, was it?
No, I was in Boston.
In Boston,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, amazing. So,
yeah.
And the program is, approximately 15 months, right? Mm-hmm. So what did it look like when you stayed on? What made you decide that you wanted to stay on, I guess, is a good question.
Love of God and changing people's lives. It's a process in Teen Challenge. So when you graduate, you can become an intern. Mm-hmm. And then after an intern, if they want to hire you as a full-time staff, that's what they'll do. So I went in, needing help and left as a director of a department. But the reason I stayed was to help change lives. And it's awesome to work, wake up every morning, you're worshiping the Lord first thing in the morning, you're giving praise to the Lord, you go into prayer, you're working with people that, want to change their own lives. Right. So it's a way of giving back as well. It's just awesome.
I love it. I know it. I'm like feeling you're bringing me back because I went to Teen Challenge myself in Philly.
Okay.
They didn't have the women's program in Vermont when I went in 2009 and 10, but in Philly, and I remember that schedule and the discipline, right? And that's what I'm going to poke at a little bit too. Is tell me a little bit about the program that helped you. Like, I know the answers, but I want the viewers to know. Was there structure? Was there, what did that look like?
It was very structured. So a typical day is up at 6. In the prayer chapel at 6:30, breakfast at 7, cleaning the house until 7:30. Then you go into the learning center where you study scripture, do testing, things of that nature. That goes until lunch. After lunch, you may have additional study, you may have a work job. Could be a variety of things, but everything's centered around the Lord.
Right.
Yeah, right. The Lord was the icing on the cake. And throughout the day, you're with people that also love the Lord. So just that spirit, is really amazing.
It's funny. You're so taking me back because it is. That's my memory, too, is how things were very structured. And we had what they call discipline slips, and you get work hours, right? So if a quarter doesn't bounce off your bed because it's not tucked tight enough, and you get work hours if you're scheduled to do a job, and there's still a hair on the toilet or on the sink. And it's interesting because I've often mentioned I had gotten work hours for something I didn't do. It wasn't like my fault, so I mentioned it, and they doubled the work hours.
Of course.
So when that happened further down the road, I was like, I'm not going to let them know this wasn't me again because I don't want to get double. And when I talked to my counselor later, I mentioned that. I said, that wasn't wasn't my assignment, that I messed up. And she goes, I know. And she said, I was almost going to stick up for you, but I decided it's a great opportunity to deal with an unfair circumstance in a safe setting, because when you are done here, do you really think you're going back to life being fair, right?
That's
so
right.
It was such good discipline. It was such good focus. And the interesting thing is we had a lockdown, and I just happened to be outside shoveling snow in a long skirt for other work hours that I had earned. So I wasn't in the house when this issue happened. Everybody was on a lockdown, but I was omitted from it because I wasn't in the house. So it's like, there was always different reasons of why are these things happening. And it's like, well, God removed me so I can have the freedom, because I can never get to the phone in time, and now nobody else is allowed, so I actually get to talk to my family today.
Right, right.
So there's just different things that in those work hours that I had learned. What would you say are like one or two profound things that you feel like you really learned in Teen Challenge that stick with you, that throughout your everyday life you're like, thank you for that experience?
I don't know about a direct experience. I will categorize it as experiences.
Yeah.
Right? I'll put the S on it. Number one is to try to remain happy in all circumstances, right? Which is a challenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we need someone greater than ourselves to help us at times. That was a huge lesson. And brotherhood, that we should lift up our brother, check on our brothers. And as men, I'm talking strictly about men, because Teen Challenges was a men's program for me. We don't communicate that often. We don't talk about what's hurting us or our fears, right? So I learned the importance of brotherhood, of picking up the phone and saying, hey, this is how I'm feeling,
Right.
or asking someone else, how do you feel? Can I help you today?
Right.
So
Communication.
those are really long-term things that I will keep with me the rest of my life.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the communication part is so huge, right? That we actually feel permission and safety to say what's really going on and being vulnerable, which
Right.
is not the way that it was in the streets, right? At all. You don't show weakness there. It's interesting too. I'm reminded of, we had kind of some structure assigned where there was every hour on the hour you stop and pray, you pause and pray. We went through an exercise like that for some time, and somehow they would know if you didn't pause and pray on that hour. Like, even if you're looking around, there's no staff, so I'll finish up what I'm doing, and like they knew. But
Right.
what that's done for me all these years later is put that check in my spirit of like checking in, touching base, right? Because I'm not one of those people that can say a prayer in the morning and I feel good the rest of the day. It doesn't work
Right,
like that. It's
right.
that constant connection. And the other thing that you made me think of, because I can hear some scriptural wording as you're talking, James 1:2, which is consider it pure joy when you face trials of any kind, right? Because it's a testing of your faith, develops character and perseverance. And I am reminded of that regularly, especially living in the world that we're in, that I'm told to consider it joy. Like, consider it joy when I'm facing trials. But yet, considering what a privilege that I get to face a trial that's going to make me stronger and resilient and develop character and perseverance if I stay in alignment with my Creator,
Right.
which is like, those are the lessons that I know I've taken. So it sounds like you spent about 9 years. And then what did life look like after that?
Initially,
left.
it was a shock.
Yeah.
Because,
Culture shock.
because you come from the discipline of Teen Challenge to the world as it is now, right? And so, it was different that I didn't have to wake up at, 6 o'clock, or I didn't have to pray at a certain time. So initially there was shock, and having that freedom. Because one thing about Teen Challenge, it prepares you for life, but it doesn't prepare you for that initial time when you have that freedom.
Right.
You fall back into some of the disciplines on your own. But initially, I was really, really shocked.
Yeah.
And it took a while to adjust to getting back into prayer, talking to the Lord, going to church on a regular basis, all those things. Yeah.
And what do you find? So it's been quite a while since you've been controlled by your addiction, right? What do you find are some of your best coping skills now if thoughts pop up or things come up? What does that look like for you in your recovery?
It's interesting because I believe that battle never ends. I believe it's a spiritual battle. And even this morning, I was like, I've got to go on this show. I don't want to go on this show. The enemy is like trying to keep me from coming here, right? And so I I tend to lean on scripture, and I get in a quiet place and talk with the Lord. Those things work for me big time. And I think, we have to always realize that we're under attack,
Right.
right? The battle never ends. Recovery never ends. It doesn't matter how long you've been clean, it can be gone like that. So we have to remember that. And I also find if I remember the pain of when I was using, it also catapults me into a different
Yes.
place. Yeah.
And that's a blessing because that's something we're not capable of until we've gotten away from it long enough to really be convinced that there's nothing left for me in a drink or a drug,
Amen.
right? Or even other things, right? I don't know about you, but it took me some years through multiple treatments to finally follow the path and stay on it. And there's been times, even in recovery since this last stretch, where I maybe wasn't using substances, but all of a sudden I'm addicted to exercise, I'm addicted to food, to money. There's so many different things that it's not so much about what's the symptom, what's the substance, what's the addiction, but why? Why am I feeling like I need to do something out of balance? What am I not willing to sit through and face and work through? And that's the piece that I know for me, I feel off balance even if I'm not using. And like you said, it's so how do you get balance? You get some quiet time, right? You do your praying. For me anyway, take the time to listen to. I'm a good talker, but sometimes I don't sit still long enough, and it's like, God might be trying to give me a message, but I'm too busy running and I'm too busy being a Mary or a Martha instead of a Mary, right?
Right.
So what does your life look like today overall?
Well, I have a good life today. I work helping the homeless and the addicted. A new place, I'm giving a plug.
Love it.
And I've been blessed with starting a program called Group Development, where we take people who have permanent beds and we give them resources to find housing, to get licenses, just different things, connections in the community. I have a partner, a nice place to live. I bought a car 2 years ago. That was beyond my wildest dreams when I was using. I was like, I'll never have a car, because if I got $1.50, I was trying to get more money to get.
Yeah, I totally.
Like to open, to see I have a bank account today. It's like mind-boggling. Sometimes I just sit and look and go, I never thought this was possible.
Right.
My credit score is amazing right now. I remember when it was. I don't know if they have a 0 credit score, but I was close.
Right.
It's so many things that have happened that are so positive in my life now, that I never imagined. I mean, I imagined when I was a kid, when I was deep into the addiction, I thought that was the rest of my life.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like a life sentence, it feels like. There's no use. It'll never get. I do remember that feeling also. And I love, as I'm hearing you talk, you've just got so much gratitude, right?
I do.
And I've heard sayings in different programs, a grateful heart will never drink, a grateful heart will, so having that gratitude, and especially when it's not always easy, right? Like it's a decision. It's a decision to say, today's a good day and I'm going to make it a good day, even if things happen and we spill our coffee and then somebody we love is in the hospital and then you're running late to work and you're stubbing. I mean, all these things that are so easy to twist into, it's one of those days. Wait a minute. There's always good and bad, right? There's always light and darkness. So it's about, what am I going to make a conscious choice to focus on today? And I've noticed that the more that I focus on the good and the light, it gets bigger. The more I focus on a problem, it gets humongous. And it's amazing because the problem itself isn't changing. It's the perspective in which we're looking at it, right?
That's true. I found that, even though we're in recovery, even though we walk with the Lord, it doesn't mean that life gets easier.
Exactly.
Right? Going on to what you're saying. And sometimes we have bad days. But it's how we handle it. We don't do what we did in the past. We don't run to the streets. We don't run to the dealer. We don't run to the liquor store. Whatever the case may be, we handle it in a different way.
I love that you said that too, because I feel like that's such an important point, and we've highlighted it on this show a number of times, that just because we put down the substances doesn't mean you don't have problems, right? Doesn't mean that life doesn't happen, but what it does mean is that if something happens, we don't have to grab a huge shovel to make it worse and keep digging.
Right.
You can put the shovel aside and get through it. And I've definitely learned there's nothing I can't get through in life today without picking, like I don't need to pick up anymore. And it's
Right.
meeting people who are in recovery. It's meeting people who have a walk with the Lord, that they're showing an example. So if things do come up, then, hey, Robert, this is going on. Have you been through this? Or do you know somebody who's done it and been able to stay sober and not pick up? And it's like having that connection with other people is huge.
Yeah. I just want to add something aside from that. I want to go back to something I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
I think that also, for me, even in my darkest times, I never quit.
Right.
Inside, I never quit, no matter how bleak it looked,
Yeah.
right? Something inside would not let me quit. And I know what that inside is today. Because there are plenty of times I wanted to quit. Like, I can't stop.
Yeah.
I can't stop. Here I am stealing again. Here I am doing this again. I can't stop.
Right.
I wanted to sometimes take my life, but that spirit that was in me would not let me do that. And so I think we all have that,
Yeah.
right? But you got to find it and recognize it for who and what it is, to find your peace.
I love that, and
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's something I've seen, with some people in recovery, and even myself. There's been that wanting a way out, and I'm finally convinced that there's no substance out there that will do any good. And yet, then the enemy tries to bring me to, you can just, jump off a cliff or smash your car, and it's like, wait a minute, no. But all of that stuff is just distraction and noise. And just like you said, when you can silence and balance yourself and get connected, that light inside, it can be loud. It's just giving it the opportunity, right?
Yes.
So we have less than 3 minutes left.
No.
I know it goes by
no.
fast. I know. We could be here for hours.
Oh, no.
So as we're kind of closing out, is there any kind of one last thing that you would want to tell viewers?
I would just want to say, don't quit.
Yeah.
It's simple. I mean, don't quit in your struggle to find recovery. It's a battle, and it's not easy. Sometimes people talk to us, and they make it sound like it's easy. Like I used to think, I'm going to rehab, I'll be cured.
Yeah, I
It's a
remember
fight.
that. Yeah,
You got to fight for recovery because you're fighting for your life.
exactly.
So people can remember that.
I love it. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. It has been so great having a chance to talk to you. I wish we
Yeah.
had a few more hours.
So do
'cause
I.
feel like we just haven't even.
I
We're
know,
just
we
getting
just
started.
Maybe we can do a part 2.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I have talked about, and I'll mention it so viewers know too, I've been doing this show for some years now and wanting to do kind of a where are they at now. So there will definitely be some opportunity to have people back on, whether it's a one-on-one, whether it's a group. We've done some panels with a few people, but I know how to find you.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I'll definitely get you back on.
Okay.
And I want to thank all of our viewers. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Robert's Story. And I also want to, again, put in a plug for Narcan. If you need a kit, please make sure you get a kit. Get some for people you know as well. And also, I'm going to put this as a little bit early, but I want to start raising awareness that September is Recovery Month. In St. Albans, we're going to be doing a recovery block party on September 3rd. It's Saturday, September 3rd. I will be bringing more details in future shows, but just want to do a little save the date. So a recovery block party in St. Albans. And then we're also going to be having a recovery opioid addiction summit at the Essex Fairgrounds on September 30th, so Friday, September 30th. More about that to come too. So I want to thank you all. So grateful that you joined us, and we will see you next time on Recovery Rockstar. Thank you.
Yay.